Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. So grateful that you choose this show. We know that there are a gazillion different podcasts to choose from these days, but here we are in our almost fifth year of podcasting, and that you've continued to make ours a destination for news and comment just means more than I can say. So sincerely, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for turning other people onto this show. If you know folks that might enjoy it and maybe haven't listened to it yet, I hope you'll pass it along to them. I always appreciate your 5-star reviews and your written reviews at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I would also just tell you, if you're not a Rumble subscriber, you can watch this show and listen to it that way on YouTube when they let us and they allow free speech, and on Rumble. Check that out there every day. So thanks a lot for being here, and thanks for supporting our sponsors. Times are not great economically. Money is tight. People are being stretched thin. And one of the ways, if you buy your own health insurance, that's a huge, huge outlay of money. John Ruhlman knows that. His team at U.S. Medical Plan knows that. And I would just tell you that if you have not shopped for health insurance lately, you really need to call John's team and let them get to work on finding better coverage for you. Yes, I said better, not just cheaper, but better too. 30 to 60% less expensive than what you're paying. And yes, at least equal to or better coverage. The thing is, you may be paying an exorbitant sum of money for your small business employees, for yourself as an individual. Maybe you're a senior on a fixed income and you buy that supplemental plan to help with your Medicare costs. Are you getting the best possible bang for your buck? Now, young people, if you don't have health insurance because money's tight, you're probably going to get the cheapest of all the rates out there. But what about the current insurance you have? Do you know what it actually covers? Do you know if you need it? If you have an emergency and you go to the hospital, you have surgery, or you're extended sick or something like that, God forbid, what does it cover? Let John do some homework for you for a couple of minutes. Let him work with his network of private insurers to find you a better rate and better coverage. The last thing any of us wants is to be stuck with subpar insurance when we need it. And if you can get it for cheaper too, like 30 to 60% less, isn't that worth a couple of minutes of your time? It's John Ruhlman and his team at usmedicalplan.com. That's usmedicalplan.com or 877-410-4321.
It was so good to be with you if you were out at Cigar Night last night, and glad to have you here this morning if you weren't. Maybe you were watching that Phil's rout of the Jays last night. That was going on simultaneously. Bryce Harper with his 8th career grand slam. There was something in the air last night, Fast Eddie. Bryce Harper, 8 grand slams in his career. Last night, one of them. In a 10-1 rout of the Blue Jays. Don't look now. You're fighting Phil's winning his team in baseball and just white hot.
I'm not used to this at all, Chris. At all.
Man, I mean, all cylinders. The continuity with those guys is just really something special. You know, the question is, we asked this earlier, are you going to keep it long term? Can you sustain through the All-Star break? And right now, they look unstoppable. That's a lot of fun. So we were kind of watching that out of the corners of our eye last night at Cigar Night. Boy, I have to tell you that it was just if we keep doing this every year, and I have every reason to believe we're going to keep making this an annual event, may I just tell you, first of all, that the Scipione brothers, Paul is there's 5 of these brothers, all right? 5 of them. And I believe they're all 5 part of the operation of Cigar Republic. Their parent company is Atlantic Cigars. And so I'll just say, cheap plug, I'm not being asked to. This isn't even a sponsorship thing. This is just me telling you. The Atlantic Cigar Company was, I believe, founded by their father. And these 5 brothers, who are some of the nicest men you're ever going to meet. They all work together. They run multiple Cigar Republics. This is the newest one in Conshohocken. They have one in New York, and I believe one in Florida, and maybe more on the way. But Atlantic Cigar out of the Philadelphia area, and I didn't know this until they told me last night. I said, "How did you wind up here?" Because it was a New York-based company, and I guess I should have known right away. They fled because of taxes. I said, but Pennsylvania? Like, Pennsylvania's more hospitable? They said, yeah, actually. This is like kind of the mini cigar. I mean, other than obviously where they roll them a lot down in Florida. But in terms of big cigar out there today, this is a big hospitable state, Pennsylvania, for the cigar industry. Did you know that? I did not.
No,
and I said, when is Josh Shapiro going to fix that for you? And they said, well, I don't want to say too much, but I will just say this, that they said that there's zero tobacco tax in Pennsylvania, which I don't think I knew. I've been buying cigars in Pennsylvania a long time, and now there are city taxes and municipal taxes and things like that, but in terms of a state tax on tobacco, Pennsylvania doesn't do it.
That shocks me. Cigarettes for sure. Is that across the board, do you know?
I don't know. I know on cigars, so maybe it's specific to cigars.
Huh.
It might just be cigars, but on cigars, zero tax. And I said, why? How is that possible in this insane place that the Democrats haven't sunk their teeth into you yet? And they couldn't fully answer it, but one of the reasons they said was a huge, huge sum of money is still made in exporting tobacco from the Commonwealth, particularly as you go a little further west. Out in Lancaster and points beyond, tobacco growth in Pennsylvania is still huge. And I guess the revenue that comes from the development and the exportation of tobacco in Pennsylvania is still a big, important source of economic stimulus in the Commonwealth. And so Democrats and Republicans have left them alone, largely. And so they've enjoyed – I probably shouldn't say this out loud. I'll ruin somebody's day now. But, yeah, they said that's why they're here. So anyway, glad they're here. And these 5 brothers who run Cigar Republic, they're not all here together every day, but I think 3 of the 5 of them are here every day. I said, so you guys, you grew up together. Your dad was in this business. You went into this business. The 5 of you all work together all the time. I said, so when you take time off, do you go away? Like, do you each go in 5 different directions? I said, no. We've all got young families, so we all spend Christmas together and holidays together. I said, so you're never not with your brothers? I was talking to Paul, the owner, or the guy who runs this particular Cigar Republic. He said, no, not really. I said, and you don't get on each other's nerves? He said, we're Italian. He said, we fist fight, and then we get over it. You know, he was joking. But, you know, they love big. They fight big. And, but it was so cool. Their parents are still living up there in New York, and Seb and I were waiting to go out to give the talk. Paul comes back, and he says to Seb, my parents are huge fans of yours. Would you just do me a quick favor? Do you mind, could we do a FaceTime with my folks? And so he fires up the phone and hands the phone to Seb, and his parents are up in New York. I forget which part of New York they live, cooking some pasta for dinner. And just talking to Seb talking to them. They are in seventh heaven. Said their mom, Mama Scipione, has been a rock-ribbed conservative Republican. They said they grew up listening to talk radio because Mama Scipione was such a conservative. And so really sweet to watch the parents and all the boys gather around beaming. The family, you know how you just know when a family just loves one another? They just radiate love for one another. This family, beyond the cigar business and beyond how fantastic hosts they are, they're just great people. They just couldn't have been more generous and lovely, and they love you for being so supportive. They built a beautiful facility in Conshohocken. So that was the second time we went, and I hope it will be the second of many, many times in future visits because they did it right. Conshohocken's a special little burg, and the cops, a couple of police officers from Conshohocken were there in uniform. They, and we asked them, how are things? They said, you know what, on the whole, again, I don't want to give up too much, but they said that they didn't, like, in terms of cops I've spoken with, it seems like Conshohocken things are still kind of in order and somewhat decent out there, Fast Eddie.
They are, too, and what's great about, honestly, Conshohocken police, like, they will still pull people over, and so I lived right on Henry Ave in Philly. I mean, it's the Wild West. You can run red lights, people, it's
yes.
Accidents every single day. So one good thing is, like, yes, if you are breaking the law in Conshohocken, they're not afraid to enforce it.
Well, and here's what's key to that. I learned that there's not a big hierarchy in that town. So where cops don't have huge hierarchies and several levels of suits above them making political decisions, you can actually do police work, and so they still can there. And they were great, so they were on hand to make sure everything was Not that anything would, not that we doubt it, but just in case. You never know these days. Always kind of crazy. We had people drive in from Chemung, New Jersey, home of the best wings in the world, the Piccadilly Inn. That is the Pine Barrens is not a short drive, Fast Eddie.
Not at all, no.
We had people drive in from Reading. Not exactly a quick jaunt. Lancaster. Those are some drives people made to smoke a cigar with us last night.
Hey, it's a good thing it was in Conshohocken. That's like centrally located to the universe almost.
So just another great crowd, and I was so, I don't know, there's just a special energy when we all get together. A lot of harumphers. Man, were there a lot of harumphers last night. I took a show of hands poll how many were harumphers. I'd say most of the room. At least a good half. So, and we'll have some audio maybe of it a little later this week. And maybe we'll post some of it a little later too. But the night overall, I would say, was one of good cheer and optimism and excitement about the fall, but trepidation. Trepidation. People want big change, but they're concerned about the future of the country, and they're trepidatious about it, and they want answers, and they want to know, what are we going to do about it? Seb kept coming back to the same theme over and over and over again. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? And Seb keeps pointing it right back at you when you ask that. What are you doing about it? It's a pretty powerful question. I don't really have the nerve to say that to people. Seb's not afraid. People go up and go, what are we going to do about? What are we going to do about? And Seb always turns around and says, what are you, very specifically, tell me what you're doing about it. It's a powerful question, isn't it?
Chris, it's honestly, it's the most important thing. I mean, anytime I go out to speak, that's exactly what I say. This is on us to get people out. This is on us to turn out the vote in the way that the Democrats have been doing. So, yes, it's important, powerful, but it must be asked.
Everybody wants to know who Trump's going to pick as VP. That was a question we got a lot last night. Everybody's talking about VP pick. Seb did not commit this time. He has said publicly before who he thinks it is. He's backing off now. I didn't want to call him out in front of people, but he actually said to me once before that he knows who it is. Now he seems to be withdrawing that because Trump is such a wild card that even if he tells people in private who he thinks it's going to be, Trump can change his mind. And so everyone in Trump's inner circle that I've spoken with on this is now officially taking the position, hey, he's the boss. He reserves the right to change his mind. So it seems like no one is confident of who he might pick now. Surprise of the night. Was there one? Anything he said in particular that surprised you? I'll give you one. She happens to be in the news this morning. Marjorie Taylor Greene. He basically said that MTG is a weasel, a straight-up weasel, Fast Eddie. Did that surprise you?
That did surprise me, yes.
Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene appearing yesterday to be backing off her threat to force a vote to oust Speaker Mike Johnson this week, though she signaled she'll preserve her threat indefinitely, keeping Johnson on a tight leash as he navigates a one-vote majority in the chamber. The development comes after Greene and Johnson met Tuesday, their second meeting in as many days. Remember, Monday, she went hard charging in there with Thomas Massie and said, you got to go. And then she came out of it and she said, you got to go. And then yesterday, she went in for another meeting. And now she said, well, all right, you can stay, but I'm watching you. Seb says she's a weasel now, Fast Eddie.
Chris, I mean, and you saw this change of position from Trump as well. I mean,
yep.
When you spoke with him, Trump realizes, and I think Seb as a strategist realizes how thin things are right now. So I don't know that stirring the pot like this close to a presidential election is the right call.
That's the point. He says she's a weasel because this is what surprised me about it. Not so much the personality, but that he thinks that she's weaselly for insincere reasons, that it's not really about preserving conservative leadership, but that it is purely, I guess, showboating or advancing herself, bettering herself, propping herself up, committee chairs and things like that. You know, she was very pro-California Kevin, for instance, which I did think odd and called out at the time. But then moved on and then voted to ultimately oust Kevin McCarthy. And then, now she's doing the same thing with Johnson. Now she's backing off from Johnson. So, Seb dubious of the MTG crowd and said, furthermore, I asked him, well, who in Congress do you trust? Who do you like? He said there are 3 senators he likes, basically. He named them. And then he said, Matt Gaetz. He said, we need a house full of Matt Gaetz. I bet there are a lot of you in this audience who disagree with that. But that's what he said. He said most of them can't be trusted. Most of them are just measuring the drapes, literally. They all want an office with a fireplace in it, he said. I believe that's true. I know. They jockey for office position in the House office buildings. That matters to them. They really, sincerely, they talk about whether they have a bathroom in the office or not and how big their office space is. And that is something that it's an appendage measuring contest for a lot of these people. And so Seb not impressed with the Republicans generally in Congress. Not a surprise. Neither are you. So anyway, it was a wide-ranging conversation. It went in many directions last night, Fast Eddie.
It did, and Chris, I got to say that was one of the shocks for me, was him supporting Matt Gaetz, only because, like, in just my personal opinion, I felt that Matt Gaetz has taken the MTG route at times. Like, it's like, why is Matt Gaetz doing this? And then, a good strategist on the inside will send me a picture, this is why, and show you all the cameras pointed at him.
Yeah.
So I was surprised at that.
Well, politics is a popularity contest. That's not a secret. I mean, it's the most effective politicians are also those that get the most media time, and Trump's certainly a master at that too. That's what makes. I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but it is something that I think we forget from time to time. Why is Trump so frightening to leftists, really, when you think about it, versus, say, Mike Johnson? Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House of the United States Representatives. Why is the left actually kissing up to Mike Johnson, almost seemingly like they love him and want to have him hang around? But they talk about Trump like he's Hitler. We've got to jail him. I mean, really, and worse. I'm not going to say it, but worse. Donald Trump is Satan to them. They are in a white-hot pitched battle to make sure he never ascends to power again. I've never seen another Republican opposed like this. And why? For the very simple reason that he does something Democrats typically only do. He commands attention. He commands popular culture attention. He comes from popular culture. He is cross-generational. He is cross-sectional in terms of his appeal to different races, to different genders. He's a household name. He's a brand name. People know him. You go down the street today and ask people what they think of Mike Johnson, or hold up a picture of Mike Johnson and say, who is this? People don't know. Everybody knows Trump. Trump has a brand name, and he had a brand name before he got into politics. Republicans don't get that very often. Well, you had that maybe with Schwarzenegger, Reagan before that. If there's a high-profile celebrity or actor who would ever run for office who's largely liked or popular, they're always Democrats. The Republican Party has never had a star quite like this guy. There have been some standouts, but never been a star. And he keeps connecting. And that is we talked a bunch last night about the fact that look at him when he leaves a courtroom. Look at the throngs of people standing outside a courtroom in Harlem, in Miami, in Atlanta. People of color, kids, wanting to hug him and cheering him. Seb said if you listen closely to a recent gathering with New York firefighters, you heard a couple of them on mic say, save us. Literal words, save us. Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a three-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past have referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. So there's something very, very special going on out there with Trump, and they know it. It's a connection and a connectivity that he has had, and I was slow to see it back in 2015, but it's there. It's been there. I don't think it's less, incidentally. I think it's more intense than ever before. really the question becomes, as you look down the road, who in the world could ever step up and develop something like this again? Is this a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing for the Republican Party? Will you ever, and even if you hate him, okay? Like, even if you hate him, because we went down the road of guys like great governors, like Ron DeSantis. We talked about him last night. And Seb laid out a laundry list of reasons why, as effective as he is as a governor, why he can't be president. And for the very same reasons in many ways that Ted Cruz couldn't be president. We have some tremendous conservatives in our ranks, but they're really not great communicators. And that's the interesting thing about Donald Trump. He may not be a rock-ribbed conservative, and he's not, but he is a hell of a communicator and a hell of a connector and a hell of a human-to-human interactor. And he speaks, people speak. People trust him. And you can't buy that. You just can't. And Republicans are terrible at it. So Mike Johnson, I think Mike Johnson's a fine guy. But is Mike Johnson lighting anybody on fire? Anybody afraid of Mike Johnson? Anybody passionately behind Mike Johnson? No. And fill in the blank for virtually any other Republican there is. You could say the same thing about almost every one of them you name. Who feels fire and passion for one of them? Who hates their guts and is afraid of them? Name the Republican. Who? Can you name another one where there's that visceral love and or hate for another Republican alive today? Is there another?
No, there's not.
And that's, I don't know what you do after this vacuum is filled. And that will be, I guess, for another day. But anyway, what fun last night. I want to say hi to my buddy John Stillman, and I meant to say this last night. John Stillman at Stillman Volvo out there in Westchester. John was the first guy, along with Bob Spinato, who encouraged me to launch a podcast 5 years ago. And he's been a great sponsor on the radio show for all the years since. And the Stillman family, multi-generation too. It was cool. The Scipione brothers were talking with John Stillman about his brothers, multi-generational auto dealers. Love family business stories. Just love them. And it was great to see John Stillman. And I always encourage people, if you're buying a car, if you're going to spend money on a new car, I hope you'll go out there and spend the money there. Because I can assure you, I can't say this about everybody I talk about, because I don't know the operations of everybody I talk about. I feel great about the products I talk about, but I can't tell you that from the top of the company on down, you're going to love everybody you deal with. I can say that about Stillman Volvo because I know I've vetted these people personally. I know them like the back of my hand, and these are like the Scipiones. These people are great people. They love their country. They're good, God-fearing people. So it was a great night. Pastor Lacey came out, which was a lot of fun. Saw him Monday at a lunch at his church, and then he came out. I cited him as one of the pastors who did not close during COVID. A lot of questions about what are we going to do? How are we going to save the country? How are we going to save the country? My point was it starts by pastors in the pulpit. Now, I don't mean pastors are expected to save the country. I said it's going to take men of the cloth of conviction not to back down from the Word of God and not to back down from keeping their houses of worship open. That is going to be a critical component in our war to tell the truth in this culture. Getting ourselves in church, getting ourselves in the Word of God, telling the truth, clergy who will tell the truth, unafraid. Critical component to how we save the culture. That's first, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as despair, but I think there are a lot of pessimists, as I have been saying for the better part of a year. There are a lot of pessimistic people who just don't think there's any way to pull out of this, aren't convinced there's any way to win an election this fall. I still detect that, and it bothers me, and it makes Seb mad. I just get bothered by it. Seb gets angry. I don't get angry because I understand it, and I think Seb understands it, but he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to hear people say, we're not going to win, they won't allow us to win, they're going to cheat. Seb's immediate response to anybody that says that is, what are you doing about it? Fair question?
Chris, it's the most important question because I can't remember if he likened this moment to the election specifically, but remember when he said, "Oh, can I get a selfie with you?" People like that, right?
Oh, yes. Let me tell that quickly. His point being that when people come up and say, "Can I get a selfie?" they're excited to meet him, and they take it, And then they'll say something like, or he'll find out later, well, I could never post this, though. You know, the shame. I love this picture. I love you. I love your show. But I could never post it on my social media. And Seb would ask, why? Well, I mean, they'd eat my lunch. They'd kill me. I could never, you go to a Trump rally. Do you post the picture of the Trump rally on Facebook on Monday morning? Oh, no, I would never. No, I could never let anybody know I went to a Trump rally, right? So go ahead.
Yeah, so no, but it's multi-pronged, because I remember when Scott Presler first came to Philadelphia. I mean, we're talking Kensington. That's when Scott Presler made his first appearance in Philly proper. There were people that were there that said, it was great having Scott there, but the people that attended that and then were supposed to go out and knock doors, they're just like, oh, Scott, can I get a selfie? Can I get a picture with you? So, like, the personality, everybody wanted to meet Scott. It's like Scott's like, okay, but, like, I'm here to teach you how to go win your community, win this election for Republicans in your community. And they were more, I was told about 70% of the people there were just like, oh, they were there to meet Scott as opposed to learn how to door knock, write notes, postcards, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I will say there is more dispersed, organized power on the left than on our. I think we gravitate toward leaders because we like to lead our lives and we like to let those guys handle it. We're inclined to say, hey, we've got lives to lead. I got to cook the dinner tonight. I got to get the kids to soccer. We'll let those guys over there handle it. Not the left. It's all hands on deck with them all the time. They talk in terms of team. They really do. And we don't. Generally, that is true. But even more important, probably the most important thing, I would say, and it continues to be true, we talked about our wives and the role that his wife, Katie, plays now in running the largest party in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She ran and won the largest party, GOP organization in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She is now the chair of their county party after losing the previous election. So she didn't ever have anything to do with politics and decided to dive deep into politics after all this gender nonsense started entering the public schools. My wife decided to enter the fray and start speaking publicly after COVID was killing kids and setting them back and closing schools, and she'd had enough, and she started going to public school board meetings and speaking. And she now joins me to champion alternative education for your kids, whatever that looks like to you. And it's a passion of hers, and she's counseling and teaching and talking up public school teachers to change course and join Christian schools or other schools, encouraging mothers in particular to find alternative ways for their kids in public instead of public education. Those are the ways in which, and Seb's point is, excuse me, guys, cigars from last night. Those are the ways in which we really all make an impact. Because when it's all said and done, federal elections and who the president is really not the thing. It really isn't, and we often lose sight of it. But the point is, we're all so content to live in our communities and say, well, things are fine here. And you don't know who your school board member is. You don't know who your state representative is. You don't know who your state senator is. You couldn't name one. You don't know who your county commissioners are. You don't know. I love living here, you say. Yeah, but do you know who's on all the boards in this county where you love living? And have you noticed that this is changing and that is changing? And before you know it, this beautiful red community you lived in has slowly eroded and flipped blue. Because while we were all leading our lives and going to soccer practice and cooking our dinners and having our backyard barbecues and loving life where we live, the left strategically and surgically went after all the committees, all the groups, all the town councils, all the county commissioner posts that actually run these places that we love. And they flipped them. And so before you know it, you're looking around, and a guy said to me last night, how the hell did my school board run the tables, all Democrats, every one? How did it happen? How did it happen, Chris? How did it happen? I think there's something weird going on there. I said, there's nothing weird. It's not hard to understand. Nobody's paying attention. They are. They are deeply interested in all levels of government and powers at all times. They are focused like lasers at all times on your county commissioners. They are focused like lasers all the time on your school board, your town council, your mayor, wherever you live. I don't care where you're listening to me today. The left is zeroing in on the guy down the street who is the dog catcher, the alderman, the ward leader. They want those posts. Those are the people that are going to change your community. Those are the people that are going to raise your taxes. Those are the people that are going to let boys pretend to be girls and bash little girls' skulls in with Stanley thermos mugs. That's how that stuff happens. Not because the community's gone to hell. The community's gone to sleep. And none of us think of ourselves as having gone to sleep because you're here and you're paying attention. But that's another point that I made last night. You assume that the country thinks like them. We're, quote, losing the country because they run everything. No, a small minority of us actually pay attention. Seb made the point a couple of times. I say it too, not quite as bluntly as he does. He says, you all are freaks. In the most loving way. What he means is we are a rare bird. The fact that you're here, I'm grateful, but this is very niche. It's doing this as a job every day, and the fact that there's an audience for it, it's healthy, it's fantastic. I'm grateful for it, but I'm always mindful, always. You're special in a really important way. You're informed, you're engaged, you're locked in. You go out on the street, away from this show, away from this audience, and you ask the general public questions about almost anything, and you'll be stunned at how little most people know. Most people. So when you say, how did I lose my school board? How did I lose my town council? How did my county flip? I guess they've all come and they've invaded and taken it over. No, not really. Most people lead their lives like you do. They just don't pay attention. They don't vote. They don't know the names of elected office holders. And yeah, they'll get together with you over dinner or at the kids' sidelines, and they'll say, can you believe what's happened here? Can you believe what's happened there? And that's about the extent of it. I can't believe they're raising our taxes. I can't believe what happened at our school. I can't believe our county just did this. I can't believe. But that's the extent of it. It's apathy and ignorance. And so when you say, what are we going to do to save the country? It's not that the country's lost. The country is just sleeping. I don't know how else to put it. Not you. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not talking about this audience. But we're rare. So the question is really, as Seb said, it's not about what are we going to do to stop their cheating. What are we going to do to make people wake up and care? And that's the much tougher question, isn't it? That's harder because that really is on us. What do you do to make people care? How bad does it have to get? You wonder to yourself. Do we have the luxury of waiting that long? You say to yourself. I understand, but most of all, I don't despair because of Jesus. That's sincere. That's not a throwaway line. You got to put on the breastplate of God. You got to get yourself to church. I said that last night and I mean it. You got to have something. You got to have more hope in your life and heart than just politics. That's number one. But number two, the question before us is how do we engage our own communities? How do we get your next door neighbors to vote? On a street of 20 people, how many of them participate in this stuff regularly? The answer is probably shockingly little, shockingly few as a percentage. The country's not lost. The country is snoozing. They're not paying attention. And the people who would join us in this fight, they wake up too late often. So yeah, it is a fair question to say, what are you in your immediate sphere of influence doing? If every one of us kind of audited ourselves that way and said, what am I doing? What are we, when we get together for our rubber chicken dinners or our committee meetings and there's the same 10 of us over and over and over again. You know who you are. You're in this audience right now. The same 10 people get together in a room monthly or biweekly or quarterly or whatever. All right, the meeting of the fellow conservative Republican club call to order. Somebody gabbles it in. You do all the perfunctory stuff, and it's the same 12 people you see every year. And you say, we're not growing, or everybody here is old. Where are the young people? I've heard this since I've been talking politics. It really is the question of, well, where are they? What are we doing to go get them? What are you doing? And I don't mean hitting them over the head with Trump. It starts with planting a seed, having a conversation about boys and little girls' locker rooms and bathrooms. It starts with a conversation about an open border. It starts with a conversation about turning on our police and turning our cities into anarchy and crime-ridden hellholes. You have those conversations. You slowly build to, and what are we going to do about it? How are we going to change that? You plant seeds to get people to care and realize there's something that can be done about it. Trump cannot do it alone, even if he wins this fall. He's not going to fix it all. No election will. So big stuff. Important stuff. And I'm so grateful. It is always so inspiring to see so many people that are so passionate and inspired and locked in. We just got to get the rest of the country to buy it. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. So glad to have back on the show with perspective that I believe invaluable in these times on a couple of different fronts. Harvard Law School Professor Emeritus, New York Times bestseller, Get Trump, The Threat to Civil Liberties, Due Process, and Our Constitutional Rule of Law. He's also on Substack, dersh.substack.com. Still doing the podcast, Alan Dershowitz. Welcome back.
I am. Yeah, I'm doing it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'm doing it tonight on anti-Semitism and the history of anti-Semitism and why nothing is new and why these young kids are part of a long, old discriminatory process that goes back 2,000 years. So I do it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on Rumble and YouTube. And thanks for mentioning it.
Of course, and I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say. And that's kind of where I wanted to begin because we haven't spoken in a while, certainly not since these protests, such as they are, have popped up. How much of it, Professor, do you think
organic and real, and how much of it is paid and staged by play acting?
Well, I think it's all staged by play acting and by professional agitators, and then they get these useful idiots, these lemmings, these zombie-like cult followers who have no idea what's going on in the Middle East. And they picked on just one country in the world, Israel. You can't get a protest about Syria gassing its own people, about the Chinese engaged in kind of genocide about the Uyghurs. You can't get a demonstration about Ukraine or about Darfur. But you mentioned Jews or Israel. Wow, we'll get 10,000 people out saying bad things about Jews, which they don't even know what they're talking about. So they're a bunch of cult followers, and they're following their professors. The professors are the truly evil people. Let me tell you a story. Joseph Massad is a professor of Middle East studies at Columbia. He's a total ignoramus. He's not a scholar. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But he was hired for diversity. We need some Palestinians on the faculty. So before he was given tenure, he called on a student in his class. And the student spoke, and he said, "Are you speaking with an Israeli accent?" And the student said, "Yeah, I'm Israeli." He said, "Well, I won't allow you to speak in my class unless you admit you're a war criminal." Can you imagine a teacher saying that to a black student, to a gay student? And yet, after he said that, the provost of Columbia University supported his tenure bid, and he got tenure. Then, of course, not surprisingly, on October 7th, he praised Hamas. He glorified in the rapes and the murders and the beheadings. And this is the professor who's teaching students. Can you imagine sending your Jewish or Christian Zionist child to Columbia and having to be taught by this thug?
It's stunning, and so that hatred, that bigotry is very real. Do you think most of these we've seen a lot of interviews with the young people. They're getting smarter in that they don't talk to media because when they're asked very specific questions, they don't know what the hell's going on, Professor.
Yeah, no, they're Hitler Youth. They're the same people who followed the Nazi leaders at the University of Munich, the same people who followed the leaders of Castro in Cuba in 1958, the same idiots who followed the leaders of Pol Pot committing his genocides. You can get kids to do anything. They just want to be part of a popular uprising. And the problem is, a lot of them will be our future leaders.
Yeah.
And they are deeply anti-American. You just watch these protests. Israel is only the excuse. Scratch an anti-Israel or anti-Semite, and you will find somebody who's deeply anti-American. They hate America. They hate the Judeo-Christian society. They hate their parents. They hate themselves. And it's easy to get these teenage imbeciles to march for something they don't understand.
Alan Dershowitz, his book "Get Trump," his show, his don't miss the podcast, don't miss his writings on Substack. The thing about the left that I always find most ironic when they cheer Hamas, they're the same people that will often talk about their fear of a theocracy here in the United States. Is there any more theocracy than Hamas, Professor?
No, not only that, but they want to bring a theocracy to the United States, and they want to deny gay rights to the United States, and they want to deny a woman's right to choose. Everything the left stands for, they oppose. Remember, the origin of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the origin, of course, of all these organizations, is Nazism. That is, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem was a Nazi. He spent the war years with Hitler. He loved Hitler. Hitler loved him. He was declared a war criminal at the end of the Second World War, and he's the origin of the whole Palestinian movement. And so what you have now is communists and anarchists on one side, fascists and Nazis on the other side, and nobody seems to care. If you're anti-Israel, hey, no problem. If you're a woman and a feminist who believes every woman is always telling the truth about everything, but not if you're Jewish. Me Too, except if you're a Jew. These same Me Too fanatics refuse to believe that there were rapes, even though there's all kinds of documented evidence. Sheryl Sandberg, the former CEO of Facebook, has done a beautiful film called Screams After Silence, or Silence After Screams, about the rapes that occurred. And it's so completely documented, but the left says, rapes? No. You can't rape a Jew. Me Too, except if you're a Jew. It's such bigotry. It's such profound ignorance. That it's just a shame what's happening to American universities. I think American universities, including my own Harvard, is on a death spiral. If it doesn't eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and intersectionality, and race studies, and all of that, they're doomed. They're not going to be first-rate universities, certainly not in the social sciences.
How can, and the sheer cost of them, I do wonder how people can justify the cost given the hate death spiral they're in.
They can't. And I wouldn't pay, I used to contribute every year to Harvard, to Yale, to Brooklyn College, where I went as an undergraduate. I won't give a nickel to any of those universities. I don't think anybody else should either. And I don't think the federal government should be funding these universities. Why is the federal government funding Harvard? Harvard is wealthier than a third of the countries in the world, and some of the states. It has over $50 billion endowment when you count everything and its value. Why are hardworking taxpayers paying for the Harvard hate? I don't get it. And I think if any school removes its investments, divests from Israel, the federal government ought to cut off funding and say, look, you're not political. We're not funding your politics here. Good taxpayers who work hard for their money shouldn't be paying for your making political points about the Middle East.
Professor Alan Dershowitz with us. Just briefly, I don't know how much you know about or care to go into this guy Soros, but I actually heard him brought up as
I know a lot about him
funding this stuff, and I have heard people say bringing him up is anti-Semitic itself because he himself is Jewish. What do you know about him and his funding of these things?
Let me tell you, I'm Jewish. I'm very deeply committed to my Judaism. I hate Soros. Please continue to attack him. Use me as a justification. Say it's not anti-Semitic to attack Soros. Soros himself is an anti-Semite. Soros himself, as a young boy, helped to collect goods for the Nazis in occupied Hungary. He has been one of the worst enemies of the Jewish people of Israel, and I believe of the United States. So continue to attack Soros. It is not anti-Semitic to attack Soros. In fact, it's wrong not to attack Soros. We should be attacking Soros, along with others like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, like Peter Beinart, like even the Ford Foundation, which are now supporting some of these extremist anti-American groups. The founders of these funds, Rockefeller, Ford, would be turning over in their graves if they knew that their patriotism was being undercut by money that they earned and their children and grandchildren are now spending on anti-American activities.
Is this, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter to try to get into the heads of it, but is this as, I know that often people see the United States and Israel as similar, occupiers, colonialists, too wealthy for our own good, need to be taken down a peg. But then there's there's a historical racist component to it with the Jewish people that is a little different. Do you see them as conflated, the American and Jewish hate, or is it something different?
No, I think it's very conflated. I think people who hate Israel hate America for the most part.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is what country has been exempt from this? New Zealand. New Zealand is the personification of a settler colonial state. No white person who lived in New Zealand had any connection to New Zealand. They just came and they conquered it. They killed the Maoris. They took over their land, and they became a country at about the same time that Israel had its population increasing in the late 19th century. And New Zealand is in the forefront of attacking Israel. What incredible nerve! If you have any country that's ever a colonial settler state, it's New Zealand. Israel, on the other hand, obviously there's been a Jewish population since before the beginning of Christianity, well before the beginning of Islam. Jews have continuously lived in Israel. Jewish holy places like the Western Wall are in Israel. Every time you dig into the dirt of Israel, you find remnants of 2,000, 3,000 years ago. So, Jews are the indigenous people of Israel, and yet they're called colonialists and settlers, whereas in other countries like New Zealand, no, there's no problem about us because we're not Jews.
It's a great point. Alan Dershowitz with us. If I may, I know your time is limited, so I'd love to pivot to what's going on in New York with Trump because this judge, let me just get right to it. Do you think this judge jails Donald Trump?
Well, it would probably help him get elected president if he does. It depends on whether Trump wants to be jailed, whether he provokes him. And the idea of a man running for president being jailed during the campaign, if he jails him, he would probably put him in overnight. He wouldn't take him to Rikers. He would put him in the courthouse holding cell with 6 Secret Service guys surrounding him.
You think they'd hold him in a physical jail, though? You do think so?
It would be. It's possible. If Trump wants him to do it, he can provoke him into doing it. Look, the gag order is clearly unconstitutional. You cannot prevent a man running for president from attacking people who attack him, which is exactly what the gag order does. And you can't, you can't compel him to remain silent in the face of what is a great injustice. This trial is a sham. I've been teaching, practicing, and writing about criminal law for 60 years. I've never seen a case like this. Now, if you go to CNN, this is the strongest case since the Lincoln assassination. But if you go to any reasonable network, you understand there's nothing to this case at all. It's a misdemeanor that expired under the statute of limitations. And even the misdemeanor, as Trump said when he was walking out of court, there's no misdemeanor here. They listed it as legal expenses, and paying off an extortionist to avoid a lawsuit is a legal expense. And so there's no underlying crime. There's certainly no felony. It's a made-up case completely by Alvin Bragg, who initially didn't want to bring it. The feds didn't want to bring it. His predecessor didn't want to bring it. This is all a part of Get Trump. That's why I named my book Get Trump. It's not an original title with me. It's the campaign pledge that Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and the New York Democrats originated. Get Trump is what they ran on, and if they don't get him, they won't be reelected.
I haven't spoken to you since Fannie Willis and the Fulton County thing in Georgia, and that whole thing's unraveled. You're just 30,000-foot view on that. That seems dead.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, she ought to be in jail. She committed perjury right in front of a million people. We all saw her lying through her teeth when she said she began her affair after she appointed him. That's just not what happened. And she didn't pay him back every penny as she said she did. So, yeah, there ought to be a trial, but it ought to be a Fannie Willis, not Donald Trump.
And then I'll ask you about the Jack Smith situation. Where do you suppose the Supreme Court comes down on this notion of presidential immunity?
Splits the difference. It says some presidential immunity for some official acts, but not for private acts. And it probably sends it back to the trial court to sort out those differences.
And that looks like what? They would they would reissue a new verdict of some kind, the lower court?
A new indictment. Yeah, they would have to come up with a new indictment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you think any of this happens before Election Day?
Unlikely, but possible.
Okay.
They could rush it to probably October. What a terrible thing that would be to have right in the midst of a campaign, the candidate having to be in court every day. That would be a terrible thing.
So you think this legal, and finally, the lawfare generally, you think this is something that will help or hurt Donald Trump come fall?
I'm not a politician, but it seems to me that it's helping him. But if he's convicted, it might hurt him. Well, even if the conviction is reversed, because it'll probably be reversed only after the election. So that's the strategy on the other side, to get a down and dirty conviction, knowing it will be reversed on appeal, but hoping it will influence maybe some independent voters.
Alan Dershowitz, Get Trump is the book. The podcast, don't miss it, a 3-parter that we're definitely going to want to hear, specifically on anti-Semitism and his work at Substack, dersh.substack.com. Thank you, Professor. Appreciate your time. Hey, Mike Lindell and MyPillow, you know the name. 20 years they've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio. And it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed MyPillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell MyPillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand they don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the MyPillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog, Dean. They're great products. And he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee, and most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza. Getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack My Pillows, just $25. My Pillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the My Pillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast.
RFK Jr. says doctors found a dead worm in his brain. That's a New York Times story today. RFK Jr. says doctors found a dead worm in his brain. I don't know why that's a story. I'm not sure what we're to do with that. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I'm just letting you know that's an honest-to-goodness headline this morning. RFK Jr.'s campaign barges into Trump territory. This keeps creeping into the conversation, and last night many of you asked about him, and I asked the room. A trepidatious few were honest enough. I think it's more than a few, to be perfectly honest with you, but a trepidatious few raised their hand when I asked, how many of you find RFK Jr. interesting? I said, I'm not saying you're voting for him over Trump or anything. I said, don't be afraid. I'm not going to yell at you. How many think he's interesting? A few sheepish hands went up. I think there's more. And I think he thinks there's more. And I can tell you, I have this on authority. You ready for this? The RFK Jr. people are, maybe the word isn't threatening, but are thinking about dumping a Brinks truck of money into shows like this one and some of your other favorite conservative talk shows to reach you and convince you that he is the better alternative to Trump. So I will just caution you now. There are a couple of things you need to know, because I have been informed that they are sniffing around purchasing shows like this one. And what does that mean? That could mean anything from hearing ads running to full-fledged demands of, when there are federal elections, you can demand access to public airwaves. So your favorite radio broadcasts, you may find, podcasts aren't under this, so it wouldn't necessarily happen in the podcast, but if you stream live talk radio, don't be surprised if you start to hear a lot from RFK Jr. And you have to understand that, one, there's a legal obligation broadcasters have, but two, let's be frank, we'll cash the check. I mean, I've always said, when you hear people advertising on this show, I take it as a great compliment. Number one, they want to reach you. But number two, their money spends just the same, and we're happy to cash the check. The thing is, we've all got to be smart enough to know what we're digesting. And I know this audience is. I don't worry that when I go to break, just because the ad is on, you go, must do what ad says, I like Chris Stigall. Nobody's that stupid. Like, I don't know why. And there's people that will write me and say, I can't believe you're advertising blah, blah, blah. And I say, I can't believe you have so little faith in people that listen to this show that you think they're going to fall into a hypnotic trance because they hear an ad for RFK Jr. So everybody just stay calm, but I'm warning you that's coming. RFK Jr. campaign barging into Trump territory. The independent presidential bid isn't a threat just to Biden, the former Democrat also counting on Republicans to take a look at him as his efforts are rankling the Trump campaign. Kennedy, a longtime liberal Democrat who became an independent in October, is making a play for conservatives by appearing regularly on Fox News and other conservative-leaning TV shows and podcasts. In fact, there is a possibility he appears here. Possibility. I'm not even saying it's likely, but obviously they want access to folks that they think could help them, and this audience, they conclude, could help them. So I don't know that it's going to happen. I know Fast Eddie's been working on it. We welcome him here if he comes. The first thing I'm going to ask him is, how in the world can we get past your statements on things like the environment and guns? That's the very first thing I'm going to say. You want my vote as a MAGA voter? You want my vote as a Trump voter? And I've heard what you've said about the environment, that if we don't believe in man-made global warming, that could lead to jail. You want to seize guns. You've said it, and that's a radical thing to say. You say you've changed your mind, and I ask, why in the world should I trust that? I trust that you've changed your mind on something that severe? I just don't, and I'm not going to be afraid to say it to him. And I think when people talk about RFK Jr., we are still so emotionally, as a country, wounded from COVID, and because he leaned in so aggressively on that issue, and because Trump is so closely tied to it, and certainly Biden and the left are, all of us who are deeply emotional about COVID and the shot, the one thing RFK Jr. has been consistently right on all along is the atrocious, abysmal way leaders in this country handled COVID. Of course, he has the luxury of not having been in leadership, so he can stand on the sidelines, and with a 30,000-foot look in the rearview mirror, he can show up on the scene and criticize both sides as handling COVID poorly, and he looks like the smartest guy in the room. I mean, wouldn't that be nice to show up after the fact and criticize the two? You know, it's like showing up after a football game and criticizing both teams for their play. Well, yeah, but were you on the sidelines of either team? I mean, So I get people's emotional pull to a guy like RFK Jr., but I just be very, very cautious. That's all I'd say. But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised to hear the guy pop up around here. All right, to the culture stack. A poll finds most college students are against the anti-Israel protest tactics. Doesn't surprise you, does it? Results from a Generation Lab survey conducted over the past week found that an overwhelming majority of respondents, 90%, say they were against protesters blocking pro-Israel students from parts of campus. Another 67% did not approve of occupying buildings. 58% rejected attempts to refuse a university's order to disperse. And most students, 81%, said universities definitely or probably should hold protesters accountable for destroying, vandalizing, or illegally occupying buildings. Can you believe it's only 81%? But that's still high. The survey found that a majority of students were either neutral or opposed to the protest encampments. Another 30% said they were neutral on the topic. 24% said they were strongly or a bit opposed. Strong majority of respondents, 83%, said they think Israel has a right to exist. I can't even believe that's a question. 17% say they don't believe it has a right to exist. Who are the American college kids that think that? And why would they think it? You ever ask yourself that? Has an American suburban kid who goes off to college answer the question, does Israel have the right to exist? No. Where does that come from? Who teaches them that? You won't like the answer, I'll tell you that. The poll also found that less than 10% of students actually participated in these protests we've been watching. You hear that one? That's the most important one. All of this, as I said, has been done for your consumption, and even the left knew it. That was the one thing that we shared in common, is calling this thing a big mass distraction, mass-produced television event. It wasn't real. 64% of students who participated in the protests said they would still consider being friends with someone who demonstrated against Israel. So anyway, these are results from this newest poll from Generation Lab. Reading this from the Daily Wire. As I told you, none of that was real. It's not real. It's not the majority of students. It's not all college students. It's not all college campuses. It wasn't real. I mean, the hate is real. The organization is real. But the volume of it, to make it look like the whole country is aflame with hate for Israel, not true. MIT no longer requiring diversity statements from prospective faculty. Announcing this week, DEI, as they shop for faculty, will no longer be considered. The school said the decision was directed by the president, the anti-Semite Sally Kornbluth, with the support of the provost, chancellor, vice president for equity and inclusion, and 6 academic deans. Now, I promise you something. If you are deciding on DEI with someone at the table called the vice president for equity and inclusion, here's what I guarantee you. DEI hasn't gone away. It's just got a different name. And so for any company or any school that says, oh, no, we're doing away with DEI. We realize the error in our ways. We will no longer hire on the basis of... You know, I was on a website the other day doing some business, filling out a form for my wife and I, financial institution. And it was asking to check all these different boxes. And you just knew why. This was a lending institution with several boxes asking me my race, my gender. First asking, would I be willing to share my race? Then, if so, what's your race? All the way down at a list of about 12 different races was white at the very bottom. Then would you be willing to share your gender? And, mark that. And you just knew, well, I'm a white guy. There's something about this that's going to negatively impact me in this exchange. If I had said I was a trans, gay, Hispanic guy, probably to the front of the line. They'd probably just hand me a bag of cash for checking the box. So they may not call it DEI, but you know damn good and well that's not going away. When you pay somebody to be called the vice president for equity and inclusion, and I promise you, every major school district listening to me right now, wherever you live, check it out. Every major district in which you live, if you're paying taxes to a public school district, I will bet you dollars to donuts, folks, that there is a vice president for equity and inclusion in your school district right now, and you don't even know it, being paid handsomely. And their entire existence is to make sure that your school district is properly demonstrating their deference to all people of all races. They're the ones that say things like, on this Holocaust Remembrance Day, we must also remember the good people of Palestine. It's those people. That is literally their existence. So take that for what it's worth. AstraZeneca, ladies and gentlemen. Listen up. AstraZeneca. I believe they've got a presence in Philadelphia, if memory serves. Withdraws COVID vaccine worldwide. Did you hear this? AstraZeneca withdraws COVID vaccine worldwide after admitting what? Admitting it can cause blood clots. Look it up for yourself. The Independent over there across the pond. Of course, you're not seeing this story anywhere domestically, are you? AstraZeneca withdrawing its COVID-19. Just for saying this today, I will be kicked off of YouTube. Do you understand? This show will probably not be heard by many people today because I'm saying what is written as a news story, not my editorial opinion. But I will be branded as COVID misinformation for reading the fact that AstraZeneca, the maker of this shot, is taking it off the market, admitting it causes blood clots. And I am going to be punished. My free speech will be punished because I'm giving COVID misinformation. That's how stupid things have gotten. I digress. The British-Swedish drug maker has already withdrawn its EU marketing authorization for the shot branded Vaxzervia. Where do they get these names? The authorization is the approval. The application to withdraw the vaccine from the EU was made on the 5th of March. As multiple variant COVID-19 shots have come on the market and been developed, there's a surplus of available updated shots, says the guy from AstraZeneca. They recently admitted its vaccine, initially called Covishield, could cause very rare side effects like blood clots and low blood platelet counts. Thanks a lot for that. How many people took that shot and are walking around wondering if they're a ticking time bomb? This is a heartbreaker. You know, I told you last week about the big split in the United Methodist Church. Here's another seismic cultural moment. That was a seismic cultural moment. Here's another one. The Boy Scouts are dropping boy. And they're changing their name to Scouting America. You know that phrase, he's a Boy Scout? When you hear somebody say he's a Boy Scout, Fast Eddie, what do you associate with that? He's a Boy Scout.
Just like a nice, docile, like
wholesome.
Yeah, like
clean
a Mike
cut?
Johnson.
Yes, trustworthy. You'd leave your house keys with Mike Johnson. He's a Boy Scout. Right. Mitt Romney. Now you don't like his politics, but I think Mitt Romney is a Boy Scout in the sense that I think he picks up litter when he sees it. Right. He cuts the crust off his bread. He'll help an old lady cross the street. I think they're just people. He's a Boy Scout. It's associated with everything that's good and pure and decent and being a good person, normally God-honoring. So naturally, the left has hijacked Boy Scouts and said no longer can we call ourselves Boy Scouts. Though our name will be new, our mission remains unchanged. I mean, for all of you that I know have gone through extensive work to earn Eagle Scout, I mean, I've over the years growing up myself and then, of course, being around others through church who work really, really hard to climb in the ranks of scouting. This just must gut you because I know how much scouting means to you, and to see it hijacked like this, it's no different than the church or anything else. Every institution that we hold dear, this is what I mean and what I was saying earlier. They are always fixed on every institution. They're not content with just public office at the highest level. The American left wants to destroy every good and wholesome and decent institution wherever it's found. We had a caller yesterday at the end of the show. I got so much response from this caller yesterday. We probably should replay his call at some point. Called and got emotional, viscerally emotional. I believe he said he's a Marine. And he said, in my community, Abington I think it was, they're having, on June 6th, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, on June 6th, they're going to have a gay pride parade. And he just became emotionally wrought thinking about the disrespect. And this is what I mean. He said, I'm sure they're doing it on purpose. I don't doubt he's probably right. The rebrand of Boy Scouts reflects the organization's ongoing commitment to welcome every youth and family in America to experience the benefits of scouting. So here again, the Boy Scout name change will take place February 8th of 2025 on the organization's 115th anniversary. How about that? So they're not even changing the name on an off month. They're specifically targeting the 115th anniversary of the Boy Scouts to change their name to Scouting America. Because, of course, they want to be more inclusive because they've begun including girls into their scouting programs. The organization says it has 176,000 girls in its programs, including 6,000 who have earned the rank of Eagle Scout. Scouting America provides a welcoming, safe environment where youth can become the best version of themselves by learning from and respecting each other. Now, of course, much like the church, the Boy Scouts were rocked by the sexual scandal of some time ago, and the left making them pay for that. In order to get out from under that, we'll let you up off the mat for the sex scandal thing, but under some conditions. You got to start letting girls in, trans people in, and you're going to drop the Boy Scout thing and call yourself Scouting America. And they made a deal with the devil and said, fine. A lot of people wonder when the Catholic Church will do the same. Many people suggest they are already. Certainly we know many Protestant churches have. Infiltrating. Every nook and cranny they infiltrate. And you and I, on the ground of our communities, our counties, our churches, our scouts, we're the ones that fight back against this if we choose to. We are the ones. There can't be a national leader. No election is going to change this cultural rot. You understand that? No election will change the cultural rot. Only we, the people inside our communities, will change the cultural rot. The marketplace certainly shows that's true. Disney shares sinking as their streaming business falls shy of profitability. The marketplace shows the way. we do speak with our wallets. The one thing I will give most people, traditional people in this country, and most people are traditional in this country, they speak with their wallets and they say, I don't want to do business with you anymore. And Disney is paying a hefty, hefty price. In fact, there's another story today about Disney. That a new poll shows Americans overwhelmingly want Disney to return to family-friendly entertainment and get the hell out of pushing their gender ideology and their other politics. Just get back to being Mickey Mouse in a costume, please, so I can take my kids to Disney, get them sick on sugary stuff, take them on a couple of rides, they hug Mickey, and we go home, and I'll give you several $1,000s for the experience. That business model was working well, and then the pierced, purple-haired freaks, the dudes in beards started dressing like princesses, and families like mine went, what the hell? Okay, well, we'll go to the Grand Canyon instead. And their business model has suffered. Rightly so. The American public don't want this hijacking of the culture. They don't. But we've all kind of been passive and allowed it. So it is a question of what we're all going to do collectively about it. An election won't stop this stuff.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.